Hi, my name is Iris, and I'm an illustrator and a 2D animator based in Amsterdam. I work digitally from home or from my studio, usually on Procreate from my iPad or on a Cintiq. Um, and yeah, I make a lot of work for advertising or animation, but also I do book covers or festival posters or editorial illustration, so it varies a lot, which I really love. I've actually always done that, I think, as a kid already. Uh, I always I was a bit shy and dreamy when I was a kid, so I was always a bit in my own head, and yeah, I remember not being a super social kid, but more I was more into reading and drawing and yeah, kind of within my own world. And that changed a little bit when I grew up, but I always kept drawing and I noticed that I was really good at it compared to my peers because I was always drawing, so I had a lot of practice. Um, and that made me decide to go to art school and pursue a career. Yeah, that varies. I hope so in my personal work. Sometimes I work for clients and it's very, today I worked on a storyboard for a perfume retailer. And then, yeah, you just have to sell the product. So I always try to incorporate a little bit of my interest or my vision. But sometimes the client really says, okay, I want to look like this, and I just need to get it done. So that really depends on the project. I do try to take projects that are close to me, or at least that I like. I like the product, I like the client. Um, so then it's always a little bit a part of me. But in my personal work, I try to um, put everything from myself into it. Um, yeah, I think the rendering, I call it, because I have a hard time coming up with concepts or ideas, or that takes a lot of effort at least. But once the sketch is there and it's approved, my sketches are quite um, elaborate already. And so I just need to sort of fill it in with color, and then I can tweak a lot the textures. And that's the part that I love most because I can just put on an audiobook or a podcast and just tweak until, yeah, I look back and like, yeah, it looks nice. Yeah, I would say it's the coming up with a good concept or a sketch that's portrays really the client's needs. Though I do believe that if I work for a client, it's easier because they already have a certain briefing and certain needs that they need to have fulfilled. And if I work for my own, I tend to draw more decoratively and less editorial, I would say, because that's just a drawing for fun. So I don't want it to be difficult or anything. So I just draw flowers and pretty things. But for clients, it can be tricky. But also depends on the subject. Sometimes it's easier than other times. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the whole reason that I um, work in illustration itself is a direct result from having ADD, I think, because um, I struggled a little bit with like discipline and motivation during school. So I was, I think, smart enough to do stuff, but I always had struggled with like delivering stuff on time, being in school at the right time. So I was quite a disorganized student, but like I said, I drew a lot, and that's where I sort of uh, came into a zone where I just shut everything out, and I could just draw for like a day without eating or going to the toilet, just like focus so much. So that told me that this was something that came naturally to me. So I decided to pursue that. So yeah, the whole reason that I do what I do is I think I noticed that I struggle with certain things and other things came naturally to me. So I figured I'll just do the stuff that comes naturally to me more, which led me to where I am now. Actually, a lot of things. It's a bit boring, but movies and books and nature and people, it really depends. I walk outside, see something, and I sort of make some sort of a mental note to draw it later. And sometimes I have inspiration and I draw like I have an iPad, so I draw like super quick sketch with like 10 seconds. So I get the image that I have in my head sort of super quick on some paper, like on the iPad. So when I have time to actually finish it, like it could be months later, I don't have any inspiration, but I want to draw. I just look into my folder, see what I have, and I'm like, oh, so I know these like scribbly lines that kind of represented a bird or something, I don't know, that I saw somewhere, and then I start drawing. So it really depends. I think inspiration always sort of comes to you naturally, and it's not something that you need to look for. But for me, it always comes when I'm relaxed, taking breaks, taking a holiday, taking, on the weekends, instead of just, actively searching for it, because then nothing really happens. Yes, definitely. I struggle with motivation. Like I said, discipline is a hard thing for me. And also, even if I have my dream job, I think it's my dream job. But even still, I struggle in the mornings to get started, really. And I call it a certain threshold that I always need to step over. Because once I step over, I get into a zone, into a flow, and then things come naturally to me. But always, every morning, that first step needs to be taken. And that, I think, is the motivation struggle that a lot of people with ADHD or ADD have, I think. And also, it's just a really boring answer, but just by doing stuff keeps you motivated. So I just start with one, like the easiest task of the day, and then once I finish that, it's more natural to do the second task, and then it sort of flows and it works itself out. But yeah, like I said, with inspiration, I feel that that's more something that comes to you in a relaxed state, maybe. I think for me, that's how I see it. Like I said already, to start with a small task that's easy for you every morning. Like it could be super small, like making your bed, or for me, it's always, I start always with opening my mailbox, because I hate the little thing that tells me you have 10 emails. I just want it gone. And by doing that, I think, oh, this is an easy email. Somebody just asked me for, it's an easy question. I'll just answer that. And before I know it, my inbox is empty, and I'm like, okay, I had some input from for that client and that client, and then it sort of flows itself. So yeah, I always start to, I think it's just starting, but that's easier said than done. And I also think for the actually creative part, it's good to just open your canvas and draw a line and see where it goes. And I always tell myself I can create 10 ugly sketches before I actually sketch the right stuff. So I allow myself to really make super stupid stuff without being angry at yourself or like expecting too much. And usually by the time, sometimes by the third sketch, it's already okay. Sometimes it takes 20 sketches, but then at least I'm going. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. I think just show up and tell yourself that actually showing up is that's already half of the work. So you did it. I think it depends a little bit. With clients, I have worked with mental health topics, which I really love because I think it's important. And for my personal work, that always depends. I think when I draw for fun, I like to do it in a little bit of a meditative state. So sometimes I just draw like pretty flowers just to get my mind empty. And they're not really interesting to look at, they're just pretty. So that already, I don't post them a lot. It's just the act of drawing helps me with my mental health. So in that way, yes, it does help. But I think for the topics that I draw, it's usually stuff that I see, birds, flowers, but it's not really the subject is not really about the mental health, but just the act of doing it is great for my mental health. If you get my what I mean. It depends really on where you're based. In the Netherlands, you can go to the doctor and they'll put you in contact with a psychiatrist. And for me, that really helped. I went to therapy for like a year, I think, to get my stuff in order because I reacted very bad on medication. I don't use medication right now. And we worked mainly on stuff like meditation and basically get my shit together on all subjects of my life, so work and personal stuff. That really helps for me. But of course, I realize I know in the USA it's harder and more expensive to get help in that area. But if you can, it's a great resource, and definitely don't be too embarrassed or anything. I mean, if you break your arm, you go to a doctor, and if there's something mentally, you go to a psychiatrist. I just see it like a doctor for your brain. So it helped me really a lot. And also talk about it with your with people that surround you. That also really helped me make them understand what you're struggling with, so they can help you or not. They can just understand. That's also great. Yeah.